Hi, Writers. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, if you are interested in learning about how to score a 5 on your Accuplacer Writeplacer essay, this is a great video to watch. This is one of those videos where the writing hits that turning point because many colleges, many state colleges and community colleges want you to score that 5 in order for you to jump right into ENC 1101. And this allows you to start taking credit-bearing courses. So this video is super important for students who find themselves continually scoring below a 5 and trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I elevate my writing? How do I move my writing from a 3 to a 5 or a 4 to a 5? And if you're at that 4 phase, I can definitely, feel your frustration because you're literally 1 point away from making it happen. So again, this video is for you. And if you are interested in learning how to elevate your writing, stick around. All right, we're going to go ahead and take this essay from the top. Sample essay number 1, score of 5. Decisions are endless. It is up to you to make anything happen. You can come from a poor family and end up a billionaire due to the wise decisions you made growing up. It can take one mindless decision to end your hopes of becoming something bigger. You can go from having nothing to having it all based on all your successes in life. For example, my family does not have a lot of money. Therefore, my family is living paycheck to paycheck. To make sure I do not live the life of worrying like my mother, I will pursue my dream of becoming a doctor. I will make that decision to change my life for the better. If you are caught up in a sticky situation, it is because you led yourself by the choices you made in. You are judged by others solely based on your daily decisions. Therefore, you are responsible for your future. You are capable as an adult to make the best decisions and understand that all things you do in life may come with a consequence. It absolutely can be difficult to understand what the best choice is for you. And if you end up failing, there's always a second chance. Life is about trial and error. You can test the waters and see all the different outcomes and choose the best decision that fits you. You may not always choose the right decision. But it can teach you how to address any situation in the future. Every decision you make in life has an effect not only on yourself, but others around you. You are to think before you react, because you can cause trouble between you and your peers. This can be a reason why your decisions make up who you are and how others view your characters. You are not limited to the decisions you make because you have full control of your character and how successful you want your future to be. The kind of life you lead is completely in your hands. No one can stop you from accomplishing your goals. Although there might be bumps along the way, you are fully capable of going over them. As an adult, you are free to make unlimited decisions that make you responsible for choices. And with great decision making, it will showcase your success. Okay, so writers, let's go ahead and take this one from the top and just sort of, talk about some of the positives to begin with. And again, I will intersperse some critiques and commentary along the way. Definitely, I appreciate how this student, anyone would appreciate how this writer set this up in paragraph form. Spelling is a little bit of an issue, and we see that in the very first word, and that is, one of those that's tough moments. I'm still, happy for this student that they scored a 5 despite this spelling error. But watch out for that, especially when how you open and you close your essays. That again, just double check your spelling. Again, glad to know that this did not affect this student's score. Because again, there's a lot of positives. There are many positives that we can talk about within this essay. So decisions are endless. It is up to you to make anything happen. And you can come from a poor family and end up a billionaire due to the wise decisions you make growing up. And so it's, again, implied that, you are responsible for your future and that you are responsible for the decisions that you make. I mean, that's very much implied. It's not directly stated, but it's established when they say things like, to make sure I do not live the life of worrying like my mother, I will pursue my dream of becoming a good doctor, and I will make that decision to change my life for the better. So again, it's not directly stated, it's implied by the writer. With that said, in this paragraph, one of the great things that they do is they bring up, this idea of that in the United States, you can become successful if you work hard and if you make certain decisions. So, there's no doubt that this paragraph supports the American dream. And they give a specific example from their own life of what that means, which is excellent. Again, Accuplacer Writeplacer, in fact, encourages you to give specific examples, even from your life. And so this student does that. And this right here, this part is an excellent example of that. And it allows your essay to be more personal and real for the reader. Then their transition into the next paragraph, you are capable as an adult to make the best decisions and understand that all things you do in life may come with a consequence. So in this case, there's a pretty smooth transition between this paragraph, the first paragraph, and the second, because they say you are responsible for your future. Yes, I know I saw spelling errors in this paragraph, but you're responsible for your future. And then in the next paragraph, they say you are capable as an adult to make the best decisions. So that allows for a seamless transition, right, writers, into the next paragraph. And then they discuss consequences. And I really like this idea of, they bring up life is all about trial and error, and you can test the waters and see all the different outcomes. Thinking before you react. My only issue is they never really give an example of what they're talking about. Again, I like the idea of, they have a theme in this particular paragraph, and that theme is that, again, life is about trial and error, and that you have the ability to test certain decisions and examining the outcomes. And so that does support the idea of you have that freedom to make your own decisions. My only issue with this paragraph is that there is not really a specific example that we can really, what I would say, sort of bite into, and that's not really available in that paragraph. And I would also argue this paragraph is full of cliches. So that would be, again, my critique on paragraph 2. With that said, going to paragraph 3, this can be a reason why your decisions make up who you are and how others view your characters. You are not limited to the decisions you make because you have full control of your character and how successful you want your future to be. So by doing that, right, writers, they allowed for that seamless transition between one paragraph and the next. And again, you might argue, yeah, but it doesn't flow that great. It's a little bit clunky. True, but again, they had that transition. And so, this student scored a 5, they did not score an 8, but they did, again, provide that transition, even though it may not be necessarily fluid. So with that said, I think some other areas, this idea of bumps along the way, no one can stop you from accomplishing your goals. As an adult, you are free to make unlimited decisions. Again, they reference the topic over and over again. And I love that. I will say, I love that last sentence. Well, this last statement, it will showcase your success. I love the word, this idea of showcasing your success. I wish this student had brought up and come back full circle this idea of them wanting to become a doctor. I think if they would have done that, that would have really just been that icing on the cake, and brought this idea of showcasing their success. That would have been awesome if that student had done that. And so that's one thing that I would say about this particular essay, is that if they would have taken this piece right here and brought that down at the bottom at the end, and this idea of showcasing the success, that would have really, again, been that icing on the cake. My biggest issue really is with paragraph 2, because they don't really give very specific examples. Instead, they stay on topic and support their theme with cliches, but there's no real specific example of what they're talking about. Keep in mind in this essay as well, there was no text evidence, and text evidence was provided by Accuplacer Writeplacer to include in the essay. However, if I understand and I remember correctly, it was not necessarily required for you to do it. But I have a feeling that as we move up the ladder in scores, I bet that those students not only, took a position, used a counter argument, but also used that text evidence. The other thing that this student, speaking of counter argument, I noticed that the student did not necessarily do is bring up a counter argument specifically. And so that may be also an issue, and why this student, ended up just with a 5. All right, right writers, with that said, now let's move on to sample essay number 2, which again also scored a 5. The ability of decision making is one of a few traits that differentiates us from animals. As opposed to most other living specimens on this planet, who mostly act upon instinct and would appear to have little to no control over the course of their lives, I strongly believe our ability to think critically has a major impact on we decide to live our lives. But for the question at hand, are we free to make our decisions, or are our choices limited? I would have to say yes to both. Like stated previously, I believe a human's possession of critical thinking and cowing or knowing right from wrong and so on gives a great amount of control over our lives, without which we would be no different than most animals. Every day we wake up, we make a decision that could impact the rest of our day, or maybe even the rest of our lives. For example, what time you should wake up, because if you're late again, you will lose your job. Even the decisions in what we eat day to day, or how much exercise we feel like getting, will impact our health. All of these are situations we have control over. If I choose to smoke and end up with cancer, well, that's my fault and no one else's. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, the paths we decide to take in life are choices that are made by us and us alone. Despite being a sentient species, having free will and being able to ultimately control our fates, sometimes the decisions we make can be limited to what resources you have available to yourself. Perhaps you are a child and your parents are the only resource you have to accomplish most of anything you like to go for. In that case, your parents might be making a lot of decisions for you, as any good parent would. Mental disabilities, unfortunately, can also be a factor when it comes to a person's thought process as they attempt critical decision making. We as humans possess abilities far greater than many other creatures we share the earth with. Some like to think it is up to fate to decide how our lives turn out, and even that is a decision in itself. As an intelligent species, have control over our own lives and what we decide to do with it, regardless of what influences us or what may be available to help us along the way. Okay, so writers, one of the things you might notice in this particular essay, I think, there is no doubt that the vocabulary usage of this student helped to ensure a better score. There is no doubt about that. And you can you begin to see how vocabulary can impact scoring. So we begin with this idea of, again, we're specimens on this planet, and this idea where the student absolutely stated their position. I strongly believe our ability to think critically has a major impact on we decide to live our lives. For the question at hand, I would say yes to both. That yes, we are free to make our own decisions, and yes, our choices are in fact limited. So they did bring up, not only the prompt, they used quotation marks, and they were, again, very direct in their position. And that is helpful. Now, with this part right here, there's a little bit of a transition hiccup because we hear, like, I would have to say yes to both. Like stated previously, this is one of those writers where I argue less is more. And it would have been better if the student had just transitioned from, I would have to say yes to both. I believe a human's possession of critical thinking and knowing right from wrong and so on gives a great amount of control over our lives. Now, you can see that the student made spelling mistakes, and it's almost like if you know the keyboard, you know that the R and T are right next to each other. And so you can begin to see how the student was probably typing pretty quickly. And again, you're seeing some spelling errors, but not necessarily spelling errors based on that they cannot spell it, but based on the typing. And so that begins to reveal itself. They begin with, again, they stayed on this theme of, humans versus animals by bringing up animals again. Every day we wake up, we make a decision that could impact the rest of our day. And they give us specific examples. And they give several examples about eating and health, about waking up late and losing our job, and the fact that, choosing to smoke and getting cancer. So they give several examples within their body paragraph of what they mean. In addition, they're using great transition words. Words like ultimately, those are adverbs that help to transition from one idea to the next. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, the paths we decide to take in life are choices that are made by us and us alone. And then they go into having the free will. Sometimes the decisions we can make can be limited to what resources we have available to us. So again, I would have to say yes to both. And so in the first part, it's free. The paragraph focuses on, yes, we are free to make our own decisions. And then the next one focuses on how our choices are in fact limited. And they bring up specific examples. And they talk about children and parents and people with mental disabilities and that being a factor. So again, providing us with specific examples. My only issue with this paragraph is that they go from we to you. And so that transition in point of view really gives it a hiccup. And I think if they had not made some of these errors, there's a good chance this might have even moved up to a 6. But because they transitioned from, we go from sometimes the decisions we make can be limited to what resources you have available to yourself. And all of a sudden, that's a jump in point of view, and it's a hiccup. So just keep that in mind, writers. Then they come back full circle. They bring up this idea of fate and that we are an intelligent species and that we do have total control over our own lives. And that is excellent. I really love that about this particular essay. Again, having that ability to come full circle and to end where you begin. I'm going to minimize this just a little bit more so you can sort of begin to see this, this transition between this paragraph and this one. And, sometimes it's better, writers, to sort of read it and hear what I mean. And so I'm going to just kind of go from here to here, and then jump to the next part. And that is the ability of, jump to the last paragraph. The ability of decision making is one of a few traits that differentiates us from animals. As opposed to most other living specimens on this planet who mostly act upon instinct and would appear to have little to no control over the course of their lives, I strongly believe our ability to think critically has a major impact on how we decide to live our lives. They missed that word. We as humans possess abilities far greater than many other creatures we share the earth with. Some like to think it is up to fate to decide how our lives turn out, and even that is a decision in itself. As an intelligent species, and I think they should have added, we have total control over our own lives and what we decide to do with it, regardless of what influences us or what may be available to help us along the way. So again, this idea of, writers, one way to check to see if you're coming full circle is to really go back and look at, go back to your intro and your conclusion. Read those two paragraphs together and see if you in fact come full circle. Of the two essays, I have to say, of course, I understand why this one scored a 5. I really see both of these kind of neck and neck, because there are some fabulous things, there are some fabulous points that the other essay writer did that I really love. And I loved how they gave personal story. I wish that they had provided that personal story at the end. I think that would have definitely strengthened their writing. I think they both have some decent voice in their writing. As far as, if I was like forced to make a decision, I think sample essay number 2 has a little bit of an edge over sample essay number 1. But again, that sample essay number 1, there are just some simple fixes, even just in the conclusion, that I think would make it better. And then, as I mentioned before, for the previous essay, trying to be very specific with examples. And this particular essay did an excellent job of doing that. Again, providing these examples. Yes, no doubt they had some spelling errors and some capitalization issues, and they forgot some words, but having those specific examples really, writers, strengthens what you're trying to say, because you're not making the reader do the work. And that's something that I talk about with students. Do not make the reader do the work. You do the work. When you do the work, when the writing is crystal clear for the reader, there is this sense of satisfaction. I hope this experience and just watching me go through this helps you elevate your own writing. These are student essays where they are jumping into ENC 1101. They are not having to take remedial courses in writing because they have demonstrated that they have the ability to write. They are ready to jump into a college level class. It's just something to think about as far as why does Accuplacer exist? And it exists because, you've got to be able to succeed in college. And one of the successes in college is being able to write, and to write a lot on different topics, and to write in a timed fashion. And that's going to ensure your success in the college world. So with that said, writers, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing to this channel, to our channel. I hope it's helpful, useful, and meaningful in your life. Take care. Bye-bye.